for the most part, I like doing stuff that really like affects people.
Yeah, that's
like,
true. That doesn't really affect people.
Or if there's any story I want, it's like I want to be out there at this shooting, or I want to be out there. And it's not that I want to. I don't have a desire to be there. It's more that like I know that I can do a good job telling this family's story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you have the responsibility to tell your story.
Exactly, because anybody could do a story. You know, one of my things when I talk to families, and imagine how hard this is if your station goes, go talk to a family. Literally, their son just got killed 3 hours ago. And now I'm trying to interview them on camera, trying to get them to talk to me on camera. It's not an easy thing. Most of the time, you're getting yelled at and they're like, get away. Understandably, it makes sense. You're going through grief right now. Some people, they get hesitant. And I always tell them, like, we could tell this story where kid got shot, 21 years old, blah, 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 and go through it. Or you tell me who this kid is, what kind of life he lived, and we can tell that story to get more people to care about it. And when more people care, you might get someone who might turn some information in. You might get someone out there who might know something. Is like, you know what? I might want to call.
From a tragedy perspective, when you're on scene and you're, covering a shooting, covering something like Sandy Hook, like it boggles my mind how news reporters have to report this. You covered, and you said it before, you were, correct me if I'm wrong, were you on scene Boston Marathon bombing?
I came into work that day. It was like the bomb, I forgot, it went off at like 2 something. I don't know the exact time, but I remember coming into work and it just happening, like literally just happening, bomb goes off. And I'm in Connecticut, I'm in Hartford. That's about an hour 30-ish from Boston. Mm-hmm. So I get in and they're immediately like, Pedro, get in a car, go with Tina, the reporter, you guys are going. So at the time I was a photographer. So I was a cameraman doing my thing. And I'm packing everything up, jump in the car. I'm pushing 100 down there. I get to Boston. It felt like in an hour. I mean, I was flying to the point where my reporter actually like called the station, like, I feel uncomfortable driving. But in my head, it's just like when you're in those moments, a different gear kicks and you just go. So we got there and they closed off a bunch of streets prior to where the finish line was. And they said, okay, you can walk, but you got to leave your car. So I remember leaving my car. I'm packing everything, camera, laptops, batteries, everything. And I just remember just walking and walking and walking. We get as close as we can to where we have the scene there where the explosion was, and it's chaos. And I remember that day there was reports that there could be more bombs around the city. So they're thinking the library has a bomb. They're thinking some other places. So cops are literally going around. And then there's people who just ran the race confused. They have no idea what's going on. They don't know where to go. They're just, in shock. So you're going up to them and you're trying to talk to them and they're confused. And I just remember just being really sad from that, man. It's just like seeing these people that were just coming here to, run and you had that situation happen. So we stood in Boston that evening. I covered the press conference with the governor. And then I remember that night I told my reporter at the time, I said, hey, let's stay. Call the station. Like, we need to stay in Boston and be here. And she was like, I want to go home. I want to go home. Me and her think very differently on news. I'm a big believer, like, you have a responsibility to stay there and keep reporting and stay as long as possible. So I said, let's stay. She said no. And then the manager agreed, no, come back to Connecticut. And then by the time we came back to Connecticut, overnight, we didn't have a crew in Boston, and you had the MIT officer that was shot. I don't know if you guys remember that. You had the Boston bomb.
Yeah, now that you say that.
Right. Remember that? Yeah. So then we missed that, and that was a huge, like, people got like demoted at my job for that. It was a big decision not to stay. But I just remember being in that moment, and that was one of the first big, I mean, I've covered some pretty decent stories, but that one was just like, this is national news, and we're doing live hits for all these other stations and stuff. It was huge.
But I can't even imagine being, a news reporter at something like a bombing, something like, a terrorist attack, national news like that. It's actually crazy because you don't get a chance to really think about it like that.
Were you nervous going up as far as like safety wise, or were you just?
Yeah, I was, to be very honest, because they said, go to Boston, and we hear that there could be more bombs around the city. And you're like, why would I want to go to a bomb zone? But again, it's like, this is what you signed up for. Mm-hmm. And you just go into a second gear. It's, for example, like with wildfires, right? When we cover wildfires in California, which is something that I've been covering for the past 3.5 years, I've covered 5 of the largest wildfires in California history. It's just increasing here in our state. when you go there, there's a law in California that media can go past blockage, right? Like if they block a road, media, newspaper, radio can go past.
That's wild.
So everyone else has to evacuate,
And
we go in, right? And people don't think about that. And I'm not at all, I would never compare ourselves to what firefighters and anyone do, but we are showing you that. We're showing you what the cops and the firefighters and first responders are doing. And no one ever says, oh, great job to the media. For us, we're the media, you suck, we hate you. But we go in there, and there's times when I've been on roads, I'm not kidding, where I remember driving down and it's just straight fire. Both sides of the roads, fire everywhere. You could barely see in front of you, but you're like, I have to drive through that. Like, and you're like, this could be bad. A tree could follow us right now and we're screwed. And there's been crews that have gotten stuck and have gone through those experiences. So I think about that when you go to those big like disasters, those big, the Boston bombs or these wildfires or tornado coverage when you're chasing tornadoes. That's think about that.
Wild. The tornado element is wild because
easier to do because
really?
as long as you stay behind it.
That's true.
Keep it at a distance, you're good to go.
You say that so calmly, as long as you stay behind it. How do you stay behind a tornado? It's like
you just watch it. You just watch
it come at you, and
that's
like
hurricane. That's like hurricane hunters. I'm like baffled by that. Like, why would you want to go in? And they're like, reporting live from the eye of the hurricane. It's like, why are we doing that?
Hurricane Sandy was that so I've been in those like storms and stuff like that.
They're holding their
This is now the climate we live in, the political climate we live in. People genuinely in their minds think like we want the president to fail or we want things to be bad.
Right.
And and they think doom and gloom. Quite frankly, the things that sell for us is weather. If we have tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires, people tune in to watch that.
My
right?
man Adam.
Yeah.
Those ratings go up. Someone getting shot down the street, those don't draw ratings. I mean, just being frank with everybody. Yep. So, no one wants doom and gloom. And the coronavirus is like, we don't want the coronavirus going on. Like, I got a 401k. You think I want my stocks taking a hit? No. You think, I want to stay in house all day? I want to be outside just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But people forget that. They have this idea that like, if things are worse, media does better, therefore they make money. Little do they know it's like, sure, the company might make money.
Right. That's a good point. That is.
Like, I don't get a bonus if I say
if there's like double negative.
Yeah, that's true.
They're
just creating
the worse the news, the higher the salary. Yeah, that's a good point, man.
People think that. Like, people in their head goes, oh, you guys just want it because you make. No. Like,
$1 a raindrop.
And let me tell you something. Talk about advertisements, right? So if more businesses are going under, less people are advertising.
Yep.
We make less money. So why would we want this pandemic to linger any longer than it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
We deal with all this stuff, man. Like, people, that's the one thing they don't teach people is like, when you get into this business, you will hear negativity. You're gonna have people yelling at you. You're gonna have people trying to fight you. You're gonna have these situations that you're not prepared for. Luckily for me, like, I grew up in the streets, so like if somebody comes up to me and they want, I'm ready to go.
Beating people up. This is our anchor man. He is in the first UFC fight of the night.
Yeah. I've been in those situations where people come and get real aggressive, and then I got to tell the cameraman, put the camera down, and if you want to have this talk, we can do it. Then people typically show you respect. I'm just being honest.
Awesome.
But people don't understand that we're still human. We're still people. We still go home at the end of the day just like you. And like, last thing we want is to be cursed out and yelled at. And we're just trying to come here and do our jobs and go home. Interesting, because if you're getting into news to start a family, by 30, have a kid and a great career, that's just not happening. In news, if you want to succeed, you have to pull all that stuff in the back burner. But for me, I'm able to adjust pretty quickly because I keep the goal in mind of what I want to do, right? Like, for me, my goal is to go home. My goal is that my mom turns the TV on and watches me every day. That's the goal. So
cool. That is awesome.
I keep that in mind. So when I started, when I was in New York, I was a photographer. I was behind the scenes, and I took a job making no money to just shoot video. But it was my foot in the door, and I was doing all different times. They would be like, come in at 7:00 at night. And then after I get home at 1 a.m., they'd be like, hey, can you come in at 5? And then I would flip, go from the Bronx back there to Manhattan. And I was doing that nonstop crazy shift. And then when I went to, I got hired in Connecticut. I was in a union. I was on a more stable schedule. I was living in Hartford, still close to the city that I could travel. So it was a perfect kind of thing. But even that shift, it was like, a couple of days you're working mornings, and a couple of days you're working nights. So you're running around. The good thing I would say is that when I went to Arkansas, when I finally became on television, when I wanted to be on TV and they hired me as a reporter, I went all the way to Arkansas and they put me on the mornings and they kept me there. And that, I don't like the mornings, but when it's all said and done, I don't work weekends. I got the weekend off. And you kind of get in that routine and it works. The thing you have to be able to get used to is when they say, they'll call you at random times. Hey, I need you to come in early. You got to come in 2 hours earlier. So if you didn't sleep well the night before, your day's all messed up. You got to be able to be flexible in this business. And on top of being flexible, you have to be willing to move anywhere in this country. That's I'm an example of that. I've never been to Arkansas. I didn't have any family down there, but once all said and done, they said, hey, here's $36,000, move to Arkansas.
And here's the opportunity. Yeah.
Do you find comfort in the chaos?
That's a good question. I do. I feel my most comfortable. I think one of my strongest suits is breaking news. When they send you and they say, listen, the minute you get there, you have 5 minutes. We're going to put you on TV, find out whatever you can. We're putting you on. And, if it's a shooting or it's a storm coverage or whatever it is, and you're really in that chaos, like, you have to be able to stay calm and thrive in it. And I thrive. That's been always my strong suit since I first got into it. And I think it's because of my experiences I had when I was back east. As a young guy behind the camera, working with veteran reporters, watching them, I was able to take a lot of their skills. So when I went to Arkansas, when I came here, they felt very comfortable with sending me to anything. If it's a wildfire, if it was a shooting of several people, whatever it is.